Leviticus 17, we read about goat-like demons. And what's interesting in the world today, we see, especially with Luciferians and little Satanists, they like to exalt in this Baphomet figure, which has the head of a goat.
A horned figure seated upon a throne, hands raised in an enigmatic gesture, a torch aflame between its horns. A name whispered in secrecy, accused of heresy, and tied to one of the most infamous trials in history, Baphomet. A word that has evoked fear, fascination, and endless speculation. But what if everything we have been told about this figure is false? What if Baphomet is not a demon, nor the devil, but something far more complex, something that holds the key to ancient knowledge hidden in plain sight? The earliest known references to Baphomet date back to the early 14th century, during the persecution of the Knights Templar, a powerful medieval military order whose wealth and influence had grown to a level that made them a threat to the church and the monarchy. In 1307, under the orders of King Philip IV of France, the Templars were arrested en masse and subjected to brutal interrogations. Amidst the forced confessions extracted under torture, some knights admitted to worshipping a strange figure called Baphomet. But what exactly was Baphomet? The descriptions varied. Some claimed it was a severed head with mystical powers, others described a bearded idol, and some even spoke of a grotesque creature with multiple forms. These confessions, however, were contradictory and inconsistent, raising the question: was Baphomet a true entity, or was it a fabricated accusation designed to dismantle the order? Historians like Henry Charles Lee suggest that the name Baphomet might have originated from a corruption of Mahomet, the medieval Latin name for Muhammad, the prophet of Islam. During the Crusades, Europeans often accused their enemies, the Muslim Saracens, of idol worship, misrepresenting their beliefs. This raises the possibility that Baphomet was nothing more than a product of fear, misunderstanding, and political manipulation. Yet, despite the lack of physical evidence, the Church deemed the Templars guilty of heresy. Their leader, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in 1314, and the once mighty order was dissolved. The legend of Baphomet could have ended there, but it did not. Instead, it took on a life of its own, resurfacing in unexpected places over the centuries. Curiously, throughout the extensive trials and executions of the Templars, no physical statue, carving, or definitive depiction of Baphomet was ever discovered. Unlike other historical cases of heretical idols, where statues or artifacts were confiscated, Baphomet remained purely a name, an accusation without a body. This has led many scholars to question whether it was ever a real object of worship at all. If Baphomet never existed as a physical idol, why did the name persist? The answer may lie in the power of symbols and the way history distorts reality. The destruction of the Templars left behind a void filled with speculation, and as secret societies and occult movements emerged in later centuries, Baphomet was reborn, not as a demonic entity, but as a symbol of hidden knowledge. But what exactly does Baphomet represent? And why did secret societies and occultists reclaim the name centuries after the fall of the Templars? To understand this, we must look deeper, not in the pages of religious persecution, but in the esoteric traditions that have sought wisdom beyond the boundaries of conventional belief. What does Baphomet really represent? For centuries, the name Baphomet has been cloaked in mystery, its meaning debated by historians, theologians, and occultists alike. Was it an idol of heresy? A misunderstood symbol? Or something far deeper, an esoteric key that unlocks hidden knowledge? While the medieval church labeled it as a demonic entity, later interpretations suggest that Baphomet is not a being to be worshipped, but rather a philosophical concept, one that embodies balance, wisdom, and the duality of existence. To uncover the truth, we must step beyond religious dogma and delve into the world of alchemy, Hermeticism, and the occult traditions that shaped modern interpretations of Baphomet. The birth of a symbol. Eliphas Levi's Baphomet. The most recognizable depiction of Baphomet today, the goat-headed figure with wings, a torch between its horns, and an androgynous body, did not emerge until the 19th century. It was drawn by Eliphas Lévy, a French occultist and former Catholic priest. In his book Dogme et Rituel de la Haute Magie, Lévy's Baphomet is not the devil, nor an object of worship. Instead, it is a representation of the reconciliation of opposites, a key principle in esoteric teachings. The goat's head symbolizes the earthly, material realm, while the torch between the horns represents divine illumination, the union of the physical and the spiritual. One arm points up, and the other down, a gesture, meaning as above, so below, a phrase from the Hermetic tradition, emphasizing the connection between the macrocosm, the universe, and the microcosm, the individual. The figure is both male and female, a reference to the androgynous nature of creation. In alchemy, the fusion of opposites leads to spiritual perfection. A pentagram is placed on Baphomet's forehead, symbolizing the dominance of spirit over matter. Finally, the inscription on its arms represents the alchemical process of breaking down and recombining elements, the transformation of base materials into something greater, a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment. In Lévy's words, Baphomet is not evil, but a symbol of equilibrium and knowledge, the ultimate balance between light and darkness, masculine and feminine, body and soul. But how did an occult emblem of wisdom come to be associated with the devil? The Church's perspective, the demonization of Baphomet. Throughout history, religious institutions have sought to categorize symbols as either sacred or profane, often associating mystical knowledge outside their doctrine with heresy. This was the case with Gnosticism, alchemy, and later, Freemasonry. By the time Lévy's image of Baphomet emerged, Christianity had long been influenced by the idea that anything outside its teachings was linked to Satan. The goat, in particular, had become a symbol of sin due to biblical references. In the book of Leviticus, 16:10, a goat is sent into the wilderness as a scapegoat, carrying the sins of the people. In Christian tradition, the sheep represent Christ's followers, while the goat represents sinners, those who stray from divine grace. In medieval Europe, witches were accused of consorting with a horned demon, reinforcing the idea of the goat as a symbol of the devil. Thus, when Lévy's Baphomet entered public consciousness, it was quickly associated with satanic imagery, despite its origins in esoteric philosophy. This misinterpretation would only deepen in the 20th century, when Anton Lévy's Church of Satan adopted the sigil of Baphomet, an inverted pentagram with a goat's head at its center. Although Levian Satanism is largely symbolic and philosophical, this association further cemented Baphomet as a figure of evil in the public imagination. But outside of religious condemnation, Baphomet's true meaning persisted, hidden within secret societies and mystical traditions. Freemasonry, Templars, and the occult connection. Freemasonry, like many secret societies, has been accused of Baphomet worship, a claim often made by conspiracy theorists. But does Freemasonry actually venerate Baphomet? The answer is far more nuanced. There is no evidence that Freemasons worship Baphomet, but their teachings do embrace symbols of balance, enlightenment, and duality, many of which are reflected in Baphomet's image. Freemasonry is rooted in Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and alchemy, philosophies that emphasize the unity of opposites and the pursuit of hidden knowledge. The square and compass, the most recognizable Masonic emblem, symbolizes the balance between earthly actions, square, and divine wisdom, compass. The G in the center represents gnosis, knowledge, or God, depending on interpretation. Many Masonic lodges use Hermetic principles, which mirror Baphomet's meaning of spiritual transformation. However, anti-Masonic groups in the 1800s spread the idea that Freemasons secretly worshipped Baphomet, twisting Lévy's work to support their accusations. This was never proven, but the link between Freemasonry and Baphomet persists in popular culture, often overshadowing the true philosophical nature of both. Beyond Freemasonry, Baphomet's symbolism is deeply tied to the occult sciences. Represents the great work, the process of turning the base, ignorance, into gold, enlightenment. Embodies the balance between Chi's mercy and Jabura severity on the tree of life. Symbolizes the divine spark hidden within humanity, suppressed by ignorance. In each of these traditions, Baphomet is not a demon, it is a path to wisdom, one that challenges conventional belief systems. Baphomet, a symbol, not a being. At its core, Baphomet is not a literal entity. It is an esoteric cipher, a philosophical construct designed to convey universal truths. It represents the unity of opposites, the pursuit of enlightenment, and the breaking of illusion. But in a world where symbols are often stripped of their original meaning, Baphomet remains misunderstood, feared by some, embraced by others, and shrouded in mystery. If Baphomet is not the devil, but a misunderstood symbol of enlightenment, why has it been so aggressively vilified? To answer that, we must explore how modern society has twisted and repurposed esoteric symbols, not just Baphomet, but many others that have found their way into corporate logos, political structures, and modern belief systems. Because if Baphomet's true meaning has been hidden for centuries, what else has been concealed from us? Baphomet's meaning has shifted dramatically over the centuries, evolving from a misunderstood medieval accusation to a powerful emblem of esoteric wisdom, only to be later appropriated, distorted, and weaponized in modern culture. But Baphomet is not alone in this fate. Throughout history, powerful symbols, those rooted in ancient wisdom, mystical traditions, and even sacred geometry, have been repurposed to fit new narratives. Some have been vilified, others sanitized, and many transformed into corporate or political tools. We will explore how symbols are manipulated in modern society and how this has shaped Baphomet's controversial reputation. In his book, The Sacred and the Profane, historian Mircea Eliade explains how symbols undergo cycles of interpretation, often moving from sacred to profane, then from feared to commercialized. A symbol begins as a sacred emblem, often tied to a mystical or religious tradition. Over time, outside forces, usually religious or political authorities, redefine it as something dangerous. Eventually, the symbol is either absorbed into the dominant culture or repurposed for commercial or political gain. Baphomet has followed this exact pattern. Templar accusation. Baphomet was labeled as a demonic idol, a false god allegedly worshipped in secret rituals. Occult revival. Esoteric scholars like Eliphas Levi reinterpreted Baphomet as a symbol of balance, enlightenment, and alchemical transformation. Satanic association. The inverted pentagram with a goat's head was adopted by Anton Levy's Church of Satan, further linking Baphomet with Satanism in the public mind. Commercial and pop culture exploitation. Baphomet now appears on clothing brands, music album covers, and even political protests, often stripped of its original meaning. This trajectory is not unique to Baphomet. Many ancient symbols have suffered similar distortions. Baphomet in popular culture, from occultism to entertainment. Today, Baphomet is more visible than ever before, but its original meaning has been largely forgotten or deliberately ignored. Bands like Black Sabbath, Behemoth, and Ghost use Baphomet's imagery for shock value, often reinforcing its satanic association rather than its esoteric significance. Clothing brands print Baphomet on jackets and hoodies, treating it as a rebellious counterculture symbol rather than an emblem of wisdom. Films and TV shows frequently depict Baphomet as an evil deity tied to secret cults, reinforcing misconceptions and fear. While these uses are often artistic rather than ideological, they contribute to a world where symbols are stripped of their deeper meanings. But is this process reversible? Can we reclaim these symbols and restore their true significance? Baphomet is just one of many symbols whose meaning has been rewritten by those in power. But if such a profound shift in perception could happen to this symbol, what other truths have been concealed from us? Because if history teaches us anything, it is this: knowledge is power, and power fears nothing more than an awakened mind. Baphomet's story is not just about symbols and misunderstandings. It is a mirror reflecting the eternal battle between knowledge and dogma, truth and manipulation, light and darkness. For centuries, it has been a cipher, a hidden key, a name whispered in secret by those who dared to seek truths beyond the limitations of conventional belief. But to fully understand why Baphomet was vilified, we must go beyond the modern distortions and look back to those who first invoked its name, the enigmatic Knights Templar. When the Knights Templar rose to power in the 12th century, they were celebrated as holy warriors, protectors of Christendom, and keepers of sacred relics. Yet just a few centuries later, they were accused of heresy, idol worship, and occult practices. One of the most damning allegations, that they worshipped Baphomet. But what did this accusation truly mean? Was Baphomet a demon, as their persecutors claimed? Or was it something else, an ancient symbol of enlightenment, a hidden doctrine too dangerous for the church to allow? The truth behind the Knights Templar and their connection to esoteric wisdom remains one of history's greatest enigmas. And the deeper one looks into their rise and fall, the clearer it becomes that Baphomet was just the beginning. Because in the shadows of history, beyond the official records, lies a secret war over knowledge, one that did not end with the Templars, nor with the Inquisition, nor even in the modern world. It continues to this day. If Baphomet was a cipher, then perhaps the Templars held the code to unlock it. But were they truly soldiers of Christ, or were they keepers of something far more mysterious? To uncover the truth, we must follow the trail of secrecy, power, and betrayal that surrounds the Knights Templar. And once you see where it leads, you may never look at history the same way again.